What's up, everybody? We've got a great show today. We're talking about flipping from a distance, or fixing up houses from a distance, maybe even wholesaling from a distance. But a lot of people are. This is going to be a multi-episode series. This is the first episode of that series, and a lot of people are in a market where it's either expensive or they don't want to invest there for some reason. Maybe they're moving soon to another area, whatever it may be. But how do we? And maybe you're even adding another market on. You've already got your main market where you live, and you're adding a secondary market or a third market. So what does it look like? How do you do things from a distance? How can you live in one place and invest in another? Today, we're going to be talking about analyzing the deal and buying the property. So how do you run the numbers? How do you understand it? How do you analyze a deal in an area where you can't just drive to the house, open the door, and go walk through it? So who better to bring on than my good friend, Jesse Trujillo, who's been on the podcast before. This is the guy who lives in San Diego, does a bunch of deals without any marketing. You probably heard him at Flip Hacking Live. You've heard him on the podcast. If you're a member of our mastermind group, he did an awesome presentation on the cruise last year in February. And he recently went into a market in Florida from San Diego. So I want to hear about that. I reached out to him to see if he would share some of his tips, what went right, what went wrong, and we'll jump into it today. So Jesse, welcome to the show.
Hey, Bill. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming, Jesse. So let's start here. What it was like kind of going into a new market. Why did you do that? And some of that stuff, like what did you do? Why did you go into a market in Florida?
Of all times, right? I did it during COVID when everything was just shut down. But if anything, I think COVID opened my eyes. Like it really did. When COVID hit, my whole team here in San Diego, we all went virtual, right? So it kind of just showed me all I needed was some boots on the ground there. And, through our group, I met, some wholesalers people that wholesale in the Jacksonville area, and kind of talking to them. And I figured, talking to my lenders or my private lenders and some, current my hard money lenders, they were lending in Florida. So verifying that, you can obviously have money over there as well, and that your current lenders or lenders that, will lend in those properties in the area you want. I kind of ran out of excuses to give it a shot. So, I had the properties, had boots on the ground. The lending was pretty much willing to lend over there as well. And so the next step is kind of going over there and doing the same thing. When I would talk about, marketing yourself with no money, I did the exact same thing over there. The same mentality is what we did over there. So we reached out to wholesalers. We're making offers on the MLS. We're doing everything we do here in San Diego. The only difference is that we got one person over there, and that person is my agent friend that is kind of working a little bit as we grow. Right now, he's as a project manager / acquisitions manager, right? So he's a little bit of both because there's not a big volume there yet. But I do that on purpose because I want my acquisitions manager, if you want to say he's going to be my operations manager as we grow, to understand what a project manager has to do. So when we pick one up over there, we get to that point, he could train them, right? He can train them and he can watch them over.
So how does a typical house come in to you guys? Is it, so let's say a wholesaler sends it to you, you see it and you're interested. Are you guys telling the realtor that you have on the ground there that we want to buy this one, or are they bringing that to you? Are they looking at the house from the wholesalers and saying, hey, this is probably a good one? Are they looking at the photos, running those numbers, and giving them to you? What's your process like when you see a potential deal?
Yeah. So no, I actually have it more where our team, we reached out, made relationships, obviously through our group, but also through just going on Facebook groups, letting people know, hey, we're here, we're buying, we're new to the town and we're buying, we're looking here to flip. And we just got all these wholesalers, numbers, emails, and we started just calling them, talking to them, right? So now they send it to my team here in San Diego. We run numbers. We pretty much get everything set up in our Performa, and we gather as much information, and then we use Podio, we tag our acquisitions agent there, and he just confirms the ARV for us. He's the one that if the deal makes sense, once he confirms the ARV, then he goes and looks at the property and confirms rehab. And, he's setting up times to go see it with the wholesalers, with real estate agents, with whoever he's got to do. But we run all our numbers here in San Diego.
Okay. So then once he goes to look at it and takes pictures, maybe something like that, do you have a process to look at those photos, confirm the rehab costs, and then figure out the offer price?
Yeah, we take a quick look. I mean, as a team gets better and better, right? You build that trust, and a lot of times it's going to be him that's pulling the trigger. But he comes back, he shows us. He does always right now in the beginning. He's confirming with me, and I'm making that decision to move forward or not, or what number to go at. And then after that, I mean, then I give it back to him, and he calls and makes the offer.
Okay, so one thing I want to ask you that I get asked all the time, and I'm interested in your take. I was writing a book. I just finished it. It's over to the editor now. And one of it was like, how do I come up with my offer price? So what do I do? What do people do? Like in the beginning, for me, it was a rough estimate where I would say, okay, this thing's kind of in my wheelhouse of making an offer around what they're asking. Maybe I can bring it down a little bit, but it's in that window, or it's just crazy. So, and then once I dial it in, then I use more specific numbers other than just a back of the envelope formula. So how do you guys run your numbers at your company?
Yeah. So we, over the years, we use an Excel sheet that I built, and, we used to do little quick numbers, but I think I've learned over the years, I try to get as close as I can from day one, because from the moment we're running the numbers. So my pro forma, I had in what my interest rate is, what my closing costs are, what, the closing costs to sell. I have everything in there built in, and then as a template, and then where you can literally plug and play just your ARV, your purchase price amount, and your rehab amount. Those three things. And it shoots me out a number, and you can play with the purchase price from there to get to the number that you want to make on profit. So that's something that I want to say it's not a specific formula. It's kind of actually gotten to where it's a big formula because it goes through a lot of channels, but it just spits out a number for us. I'd rather know as close as I can to where my profit's going to be than kind of a rough estimate. So I'd rather have them all come in as close as possible than what we originally planned from day one. And it lets me give my best offer right from the beginning, because competition's tough. So, you don't want to have it where, shoot, I could have offered $5,000 more and I lost the deal because I didn't finish all my numbers on it. So that's why I kind of go a little more all out, I guess you could say, and going on everything that has to do with all our expenses to come up with our offer price.
Well, I think that's important, because when I got going and I had enough data, so I had enough houses that I had done to determine what percentage or what cost is the closing cost. What's the holding cost like? What are the what's the money cost? And what's the realtor fees, all that stuff? Because all those are kind of variables. I might've started at 6% realtor fees, and then I was able to find a realtor that worked in-house for me that only got paid 1%. So then I got down to 3.5% for me. So I was able to save a percentage there, and I was able to get my money cheaper. So I could actually bring my average money cost down. And then holding costs, maybe I can get the project done faster. So I put in the timeline and it changes a little bit. And then, like, for me in Florida, my closing costs weren't as expensive. I remember our first mastermind meeting, I was talking to a guy in New York, and his closing costs were insane compared to mine. And he was asking me what my formula I used to buy a flip. And I told him, I kind of use this fixed cost method. Like, I know what the fixed costs are. I know what the variable costs are, and I just kind of make adjustments and tweak like a formula like you're talking about. And I said to him, look, you flipped enough houses. Just go back and look at all of your costs, look at what they were. And I bet if you put them in an Excel sheet of the 15 houses that you've done in the last year, it'll spit out, even if you could use a percentage of ARV minus repairs, and you would get to a place that's right for you in New York. If I use that in Florida, I would never buy a house, because his closing costs were like, I don't know, 15% of the purchase price. It was crazy, all in costs. So I think that's smart, and I think it's important to do. So if you're brand new to flipping, if you got with somebody like Jesse, or got with somebody and said, hey, on average, like what would I be spending on this here? What does it look like? What is a rough estimate? Just like getting with the contractors, like you talked about, there's a certain amount of money per house that it's probably going to cost you. So I like that a lot. Everybody kind of talks about the 70% rule or 80% rule or whatever. it doesn't really work that way. And as the price point of the houses change significantly, you can't really just put a percentage because your profit is built in there. So I want my fixed costs, my variable costs, and my profit. Profit is that variable one. So what do you guys want for profit on houses like this in Florida?
I mean, we try to make at least a 20 grand profit. I mean, that's my goal. Between 20 and 40 is our sweet spot. I think it's realistic. And I can tell you, even at 20, the competition's fierce and we get beat out quite a bit, So and it goes back to the old rule, right? You just got to stick to your numbers. And if that's what makes you feel good, you just got to stay with it. And we've had a couple that they do come back, they come back and they call us back and ask if we're still interested and we'll try to lock it up.
Cool. I remember when I got started, it was kind of, I wanted these big profit margins, 40,000, 50,000, things like that. And, honestly, if I broke even on my first deal, I would have learned a ton and it would have been okay with me. At the time, it didn't seem okay, but looking back, it's like, man, if I got paid, $10,000 to learn all this, do my first deal, get that first deal is so hard, get that thing done and behind me and move forward. I would have been fine with it. So I'm not recommending that all of you guys that are listening build in a $5,000 or $10,000 profit or decide to break even. Because if you build in a $10,000 profit, you'll probably lose $5,000. There's always things that come up, especially on your first deal. You're going to over renovate it. You're going to miss something. There's going to be something that pops up. Some contractor's probably going to steal some money from you. Who knows what's going to happen? So what I heard was, number one, they have boots on the ground, know the market, get access to the MLS so you can find the ARV, talk to contractors, get an idea of the repair costs in that new area that you're not sure of to see if it is like what you're used to doing or if you're brand new, what that is. Get some photos of the house and kind of run your numbers and plug it in however you calculate your deal. Run your profit numbers, run that ARV, run the rehab costs that you think. And then, on the next episode, what I want to do is jump into, okay, I'm virtual and I got to go find contractors. I have to now hire contractors and manage contractors. How do I do that? Like, that's the kind of next step from here. But it shouldn't be too scary to run your numbers from a distance. As long as you, like Jesse said, you're going to have somebody that you trust in that area. Like, that is the key. When you can get there and keep that person on their toes. Don't let them get super comfortable by anything. I've kind of run into some mistakes in the past. Before I let you go, Jesse, and we wrap this up, what are some things that lessons learned that haven't necessarily worked for you in this virtual market that you would share with some of the listeners to hopefully help them from making the same mistakes that you guys did? And maybe it all went perfect for you. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think is assuming that you're going to get to that new market and you're going to get deals right away. I mean, I think depending on which way you're going, if you're using direct marketing, that's one way. If you use just, networking kind of style that we use, that networking style is going to take longer. I mean, people don't know who you are, right? People don't trust you. You got to build those relationships wherever you go. So it takes time. And I want to say we've been there for several months now, and we're finally seeing people that we have closed with. You got to show them what you can do. And we get great feedback. And now they're calling us with, hey, I got something coming up soon. Right. So it's don't assume that you're going to get a bunch of deals from day one. When you're going to a new market, it's going to take time, and just keep that in mind and know that from there, you just have to have that patience, and little by little, you're going to get some deals and they're going to start coming through. The other thing too is have an open mind. I mean, because I went over there to flip. And what ended up happening is, you run numbers and you're getting beat out. And what's happening is I noticed that it's a great rental market. So we're getting beat out by a lot of investors that are just looking for rentals that could pay more than a flipper. So have an open mind on that, and kind of also keep, look at your market and ask agents, right? Who's buying most of the flips? Ask the wholesalers, who's buying them? Is it more flippers, or is it more investors that are looking to rent? Because that's important to know, because if you're not going into the rental game, you might be getting beat out a lot. What we ended up doing, we shifted when we ended up, now we're buying flips, and then we're also buying rentals. So just to stay with the game there. So we're definitely picking up quite a few properties. And as much as I'd like to flip them all, they don't all work, but they work as rentals. So we shifted, and now we have a big rental presence in Jacksonville too.